the 5th of Nisan and the 27th of March, and we are learning the mimer from the Rebbe Moarash, the 4th Rebbe, called V'asu Aron Atzei Shitim. Should make a cabinet or an ark made of acacia wood. And we began by saying that there are two different descriptions of what happened, and the two different descriptions are, one is in, okay, maybe it's back, hopefully. Okay, so what we saw is that he's now going to, and then we saw the Talmud that says that these two descriptions, one which says that Moses should make the ark, and the other one is that the Jewish people should make the ark. So we saw the different opinions about how this relates to when they do God's will, when they don't do God's will. And when they do God's will, it's named after them, that you shall make. And when you don't do God's will, it's named after Moses, as it were. Okay? And that wasn't very clear, and he's going to get into that. But it's a basic question in life, and a basic question in terms of how we look at things. Is it we who are doing something in the world, or is it not? Because if we say that the whole feeling of being separate from God and being separate from reality, that we have an ego, that we feel separate, we feel autonomous, we feel independent, free agents, it seems to us that what we do should be given to our credit. If that is all a concoction of the mind, that really there is no separation between me and God, there is no separation between me and the world. If you want, this is even, if I would have to couch it in philosophical terms, it would be like saying that Spinoza was right, that there's what we call pantheism, that everything is godly, so there's nothing special about my point of view. So if you say that, then I don't do anything. It's really God doing everything, and I only have the imagination, the picture of a perspective that is independent of God. So this is the heart of the question that's discussed in many, many articles, and here also. And to understand this, he said, we have to look at the word tevuato, Reshit Tevuato. Kodesh Yisrael Hashem, Reshit Tevuato. The sanctity of Israel for God is that He is the beginning of His produce. And we said that this word produce is written in a strange way. Instead of being written with a vav at the end, it's written with a hey at the end. Okay? And then he explained to us that the letter hey represents the beginning of speech. It doesn't yet have, the words don't yet have what I'm pronouncing with the letter hey is not yet really speech, because it's just a wind passing through my trachea. So there's nothing there yet. And so it's the beginning of speech. And he says here at the end of page 4, שעל זה אמרו על פסוק נודע בשערים בעלה, כל אחד לפום שיעור הדילי, לפום מה דמשער בליבי. About this, the letter hey, which is just the beginning of speech, and he added here a very important statement, והנה כל ביטול המלאכים הוא בבחינה זו. That the way that the angels are, they also have some consciousness, but their consciousness is not separate. So the consciousness that they have is likened to the letter hey. That it's like being something, but it's not yet something that's really distinct. Again, like the letter hey, the pronunciation of the hey, which is just wind passing. There's something going on. There's already the beginning of a pronunciation, but you can't say that this is really something independent of the person yet. Nothing's really come out yet. It's not articulation of any letter or word yet. It's just, so he says, the angels, their consciousness is in that sense. It's like the beginning of God speaking. God created the world in the Torah, according to the Torah, with a metaphor of speech. So where are the angels in all this? It's just the beginning of, where do we see this? Yehi-o, right? Just in Yehi, that was the beginning of the angels. Because that's how their consciousness is. It's not really separate yet from godly consciousness. It's not yet separated from the whole, or not entirely. And it says that in the way that they have bittul from this, they have selflessness from this, they don't feel their consciousness to be something separate from godliness. That's how these creations called the angels function. In the same way, a human being can have consciousness also, meaning that I can also meditate on this letter Hey, the fact that the beginning of my speech is still really part of me, just this Hey, which is not yet a consonant. I can meditate upon this, and then I'll come to an understanding of two things he's going to tell us now. שבזהו וההתבוננות זו הוא בחינת ביטול כל הנבראים, מלאכים ונשמות, כל אחד לפי ערך השגתו בבחינת הערה מחיה ומהווה כל העולמות. He says, if I too meditate on this beginning of speech, I can take this as a metaphor for how is it that really my consciousness is. That my consciousness should really not be something separate. It should be like the letter Hey beginning to come out of my windpipe and beginning to formulate letters. But it's not really separate yet from me. So the letter Hey is like what we call the Ha'ara be'alma, just like a glimmer coming out of the great light that is God. It's like a glimmer that's suddenly appearing at the beginning of twilight. There's no world yet, but there's something coming out. This something doesn't have yet distinct and concrete existence separate from godliness. Okay, so that's how you meditate. That's how you understand. You have to learn about your relationship with God from your flesh. So this is a tremendous way to use the body to meditate, to understand how the relationship of my consciousness to divine consciousness is. I'm not really separate. And it says this, now this is a big chap, this is a big big leap, that if I'm contemplating, I am contemplating in my heart, I'm trying to assess what it means that my consciousness is not separate. And there are many gates to this. That's why it's called Nodaba She'arim Bala. Each person can grasp this at a higher or lower level. Then if I add these two words together and I say Shi'ur Hey, that I am now contemplating the Hey, I am passing through the gateway of the contemplation of this letter Hey. What do I get? I get the word Se'ora. Se'ora is barley. How is this related to anything? So he says that we know that this time of year now, we said that this mimer, this essay, is in some ways a preparation for Pesach. In this time of year, in the agricultural world, the barley ripens. No, the barley ripens first, and then the wheat. And the times that they ripen in the agricultural year are in the middle of Nisan. The first day of Pesach is the time of the beginning of the ripening of barley, and that's why we bring. What do we bring?
Wind.
On Pesach, what do we bring? Korban HaOmer. On the second day of Pesach, we bring a special offering. It's a meal offering, but it's made out of barley. We never bring barley as a meal offering. In fact, the meal offering has to be made out of the choicest wheat, the choicest flour made from wheat. What is this suddenly that we have this offering that's made, a meal offering that's made out of barley? Because that's all that's around. There's nothing else. You can't get wheat because it hasn't ripened yet. But the meaning of that is that se'ora, barley, this word barley is telling you that the natural world is telling you this is the time of year to contemplate the hay. This is the time to think about the hay. So now he's going to say, since in the natural world this is how it is. And then wheat, chita, will only ripen in Shavuot, 7 weeks later. And that's when we bring the Shnei Alechem, the meal, special meal offering on Shavuot that's made out of wheat already, from the new wheat. And only after we bring that meal offering can we eat from the rest of the wheat of that year's produce. So there are 2 times of contemplation right now from Nisan and on that we're coming upon right now. today is the 5th of Nisan. In 10 days, in 11 days, we would bring the barley offering. So it means that this time of year, when we come out of Egypt, should be dedicated to this contemplation of the hay. Okay? And now he's going to explain to us, what does that mean? עניין סעורה שהוא שיעור ה', פירוש, כי כל האותיות 10 מאמרות הם נלקחים בשורשם מינות ה' שהוא מקור כולם. Because as we said, all the letters that we utter, that we make as consonants, and all the letters that went into God's creation of the world, because he created the world with letters, as it were, they all come from the letter Hey. שזהו עניין בהי ברעם, כללות כולם. That's what we say that God created the world, and biyom hibaram, on the day they were created. And the word they were created, behi baram, has a small minor hey. So the sages interpret this, they say, he created everything with the letter hey. Again, he didn't create with the letter hey in the sense that he took a letter hey. It's a meditation, something that you need to contemplate. What does it mean that he created everything with the letter hey? Meaning that initially, nothing has separate consciousness. And I want to go back to that state when the child is born and his consciousness begins to form. It is still very much godly consciousness. It's not the consciousness of an adult. They see the world differently. That's why the sages say that from the time that the temple was destroyed, where do we find prophecy? Either by someone whose consciousness has left him to a great degree, so he continues to think, but he doesn't have an ego, he doesn't have a sense of self the way that most people do, which is someone who is psychotic. And so they see things that we can't see. And the other is ktanim, and little children. Because they also don't yet distinguish themselves as being separate from godliness. Whatever's going through their mind, it's like a cloud that's passing through their mind, that is divine consciousness. They don't yet separate themselves from it and begin to see it as something distinct and see the world from one distinct perspective. Okay? So that's what it means that he created everything with hay, because in the beginning nothing has distinct consciousness. וכל נברא יש לו אות פרטי המחיה אותו עם האותיות 10 מאמרות ומחילופיהן תמותיהם כנודע מה שכתוב בפרדס ועמק המלך בעניין עלה שערים המתגלגלים פנים ואחור כמו שכתוב בספר של בו עינונים חלק ב'. And as we know, everything then cascades from that letter Hey into separate forms of consciousness. And these separate forms of consciousness, they come from the other letters of the Aleph base, which are then formed from the first utterance, the Hey, from that. And how do they do this? So he says it's common knowledge. He says here, and everybody talks about this, that the letters of the Torah in the description of creation, they and their substitutions, chilufehem v'tumurottehem, that they can be substituted for other letters. You can get all the words in Hebrew from the first 496 words in the Torah which describe the account of creation. That's how many words there are in Ma'aseh Bereshis. It's many things. We're not going to talk about now. But there's 496. Somebody bothered to count because obviously it's an important number. And these are what we call the 231 gateways of two letters. That's what they're called, gateways, because you pass from this, if you pass in this direction, so the aleph on this side, base is on that side. That's a two-letter gate. If you pass in the other direction, then the base is on this side, meaning the base is on your right and the aleph becomes on your left. So at first it's the aleph on your right and then the base on the left, and when you pass from the other side, it's the opposite. The aleph becomes on your right and the base on your left, and the base becomes on your left. In any case, these are called the 231 gateways because there are 231 possible pairs of letters in Hebrew, because there's 22 letters, so there's 21 times 22 divided by 2. That equals 231. And these are front and back. This is actually related to today's Torah reading. We're not going to get into it. You have to watch the daily Torah study to see why. but that we have something that has two sides to it. It's like folded on itself. We'll talk today about that because that's the discussion regarding the meal offering of the high priest. We'll talk about that. So the word seorah, barley here, means two things. The first one is hashiur min ha'hei shu hamakor litavut hanivra v'zeu shiur hei. So the first thing is that you should see that your source is from the heart itself, meaning from the heart of God, as it were, that you're one with God's consciousness. So you should have complete selflessness, the lack of self, the annihilation of the ego that comes out of this, from this contemplation. והשני, כל אחד לפי ערך חלקו, שירגיע לו מן ההי, לפי ערך זהו ההתבוננות שלו בבחינת ביטול העולמות לאלוקות המהווה אותם. And the second thing is the actual contemplation that each person can do in order to reach the state of selflessness. The first thing is that everything is really this way. Everything comes from the utterance of God. The second thing is that I, in my contemplation, can come to feel a sense of selflessness depending on how strongly I contemplate this. Now, I want to explain what it means, how you contemplate this. What does it mean, how strongly? What does it mean here? When we do an avera, do we think it's a matter of life and death? No, we don't care. Really, we don't care. We say it says in the book that you shouldn't do so and so. That's where it says. It doesn't say here. If I were to walk off a building, I'd care a lot. Right? If I was falling from the sky, I'd care a lot. If I was facing a car and going to move out of the way, I'd care a lot. Why do these things make us care? And doing something that the Torah says is forbidden doesn't make us care. Why? Why don't we feel anything? This is the essence of what we call the exile of the divine presence. There's no divine presence in our lives. We don't know what that means. Right? The tikkun chatzos, the people say, that they wake up in the middle of the night, they say this prayer. It's ostensibly, it's about the destruction of the temple. But really what it's about is we have the tikkun rachel and tikkun leah are the two parts of the divine presence. That we neither understand nor feel that something's lacking. Imagine somebody who's blind and doesn't know that he's blind, he doesn't know that anything is missing. He thinks this is how the world is. So what the Torah says is wrong is not just wrong because the Torah said so. It's saying the moment that you transgress this, you're putting your life at stake. Why don't I feel that? Why is it that if I'm facing a fire and it's burning down and I won't come near it, it's because I understand right away that this is something that's dangerous for me. Why is it that I don't understand that what the Torah says not to do is not dangerous for me? Why don't I understand that? That's because we don't feel anything when it comes to what God said. That's called galut hashchina. That's called the exile of the Shechina. We don't have this intuition about life. We don't have this intuition about ourselves. And that was the first thing that they had to contemplate when they came out of Egypt. So again, I said that because the natural world is now ripening the barley, shiur hei, seorah shiur hei. From this I learned that when they first came out of Egypt, they had to spend 49 days restoring the natural feeling that I have to follow what God says. That was the purpose of the first 49 days. You couldn't receive the Torah yet. Because how could you receive the Torah? The Torah would just be a set of principles that somebody dreamt up. And if you don't feel that these principles are describing how the world actually works, then it will just be something very external to you. You won't do anything with it. You just say, oh, it says in the book so and so. Okay, it says, very nice. There's a lot of books. They say a lot of things. Even if I believe that it's true, I don't have any intuition about it. I have no reason to actually follow it. Why do people, how is it that people can drive on Shabbos? They don't understand that they're putting their life at stake? No. How is it different than driving any other day? The same risks you have, the same insurance you have on a weekday, you have on Shabbos. It's the same thing. Because the person himself can't feel that this is a problem with that there's a problem with what they're doing. They have to believe that what the Torah is saying is true. What is that? That is because we don't feel that's what it means, the exile of the divine presence. We don't feel that we come out of the divine. We have such a sense of self that is separate from godliness that we can't understand this notion that you can't light a fire on Shabbos, that you can't drive a vehicle on Shabbos, that you can't cook on Shabbos. We don't understand it. It just says so. We're very good people, so we do what it says in some of us. Yeah. Others will say, "Oh, you're just naive. What do you believe what it says?" It says nobody has to explain to anyone that you don't jump off a building. Why is that? Because everybody understands it. Because there's a clear, present consciousness that I will end my life if I do that. But the notion that somehow I'm putting myself in danger if I do something the Torah tells me not to do, if I mix milk and meat, that I don't have any intuition about. So he says the first 49 days are the time of the barley, which is the time of, first of all, contemplating, restoring that feeling that I come out of the divine, that I'm one and the same with the divine. If I don't feel that I'm one and the same of the divine, which is in this case the Torah, that my consciousness is really emerging from the Torah, from the account of creation, then I don't have any natural intuition about what the Torah says. For me, the Torah is just a arbitrary, not just a story, but an arbitrary set of laws that I have to follow. And I don't feel anything. It says, how much should a person be in pain over the fact that we don't understand our source? That we feel, this is something that's common, because you could ask a simpler question. Do you understand that you came from your mother? Nobody does. There's not a person alive who feels that his physical body came from his mother. It doesn't exist. In fact, I can't even understand that my physical body is dependent on the food that I eat. I understand that I'm hungry, but I don't understand how my body is being built from the food I'm eating. I have no understanding. Why is that? Because my consciousness is so separate. It so causes me to be something distinct that I can't trace my origins. I can't trace myself back to any of my origins, be they spiritual or physical or imminent, even like eating. All I feel is I feel hunger. I feel pain in my stomach. That's all I feel. But I don't understand that what I am today is the consequence of what I ate in the last 3 months. I don't feel that at all. I don't care. Okay, that's what the separate consciousness causes. We don't understand our origins. So he says the first 49 days after they came out of Egypt, the first thing they had to do was bring the meal offering made out of barley, and that indicates contemplation of what my origin truly is, to restore the connection between my consciousness and divine consciousness. We'll continue tomorrow.